Well, hello guys, welcome back. So I'm doing this kind of late at night, so it explains kind of the odd lighting setup behind me. It's I really don't care what the neighbors think, but I'm trying to get my body to think, okay, bedtime now. So, um, I finally figured out what Odin wanted, and Odin's pretty good at things. And I had said to him rather unfairly, to be sure, you took a brother. What am I getting in exchange? And tonight he said, I took your brother, you get a god in exchange. Now, Odin didn't literally take my brother off this earth, to be clear, but it's a normal reaction. And a normal thing in the courtship between a human and a god, and I don't mean in a romantic sense, is that you will be attracted towards a god, you'll go towards them, you'll hit all sorts of obstacles, whatever they are. They might be other people, they might be people laughing at you, they might be gatekeepers, whatever they are, and you'll go so far and then you'll run the hell away. Because this is spooky. They sound very attractive when they're calling to you, and then you get kind of close and you start figuring out exactly what kind of scheme they got in their god brain, and you go the other way. And that's where Odin and I have been for a couple of years, because it's not 5 minutes. It's not people you might see go, oh, I had this immediate conversion and I never once looked back. That's usually not how it works. A classical courtship thing is, I was kind of wondering why I was attracted to this atheist, Reddit, ex-Christian Reddit. And one, because most old school atheists, not the newest ones that can't do shit and don't know the research or anything, but the older ones, are very articulate and they're very learned. And it just popped up on ex Christian Reddit. This atheist gentleman was having a talk with a Christian, and I was like, as long as this isn't one group being very rude and screaming at the other, this sounds actually interesting. There's something kind of soothing about atheism. And it clicked because I listened to this one discussion. I'm like, hey, this is kind of good. They're both actually listening to each other, argument, counter argument, or, better still, this was the first ever atheist I saw let someone actually talk and explain themselves and didn't just run up to them and scream. In fact, he wanted to let the other person talk. And I'm like, this must be a new tactic. I've never seen this before. What's he up to? He's not up to anything. He's actually trying to have these discussions. Now, he was fair. He said about 50% of the stuff he does with Christians of some type. I don't think he's done pagans yet, but he did the one I listened to, and then he went on to this Jesuit priest, or this guy that's in the process of becoming a Jesuit priest, which was what I wanted to be. Unfortunately, I'm not equipped. And if I wanted to become a priest, I wanted to become a Jesuit priest very strongly because they have the most education. They are kind of like God's special forces. We're getting back to the Old Father. They have the most education. They're pushed to get even more education. They're the learned men. They're not, there's nothing wrong. God bless the parish priest for the Catholics out there. There's nothing wrong with your average parish priest. They're okay, but a Jesuit was pushed harder. They had to prove themselves. It's years of study. It's years of study. And the funny thing was, this guy had, going into the priesthood, he had grown up Catholic, got away from it, went overseas, had his time in the Air Force, everything else. And, even was engaged at one point. And then he felt, as he was going to see his girl, as he was in the Air Force, he felt he was being called back. He was like, uh-oh, you know. And he found out how much had changed in the church. And I'm like, uh-oh. Which God in particular is calling me? And Odin's with me. And he's like, no, just sit still, listen. And he went and he figured out that what was happening in his life, and this is going to get back to Odin, just have patience, is that Jesus wanted him to become a Jesuit. And he thought, what am I afraid of? And what he was really afraid of is that Jesus wanted him to become a Jesuit. And keep in mind, this is a sexually active man. He's like, no, I am not doing this. In fact, he went and tried to study Islam. And he was courting with Islam up until the point where he was pretty ready to step out the door to Islam. He really was. And just something happened, and he went and he talked to a Catholic priest, and he was kind of arrogant. He admits he was kind of arrogant. He went in there and he's like, "Have you know I'm talking to Islam, and it's up to you to convince me to come back." The Catholic priest, of course, shut him down and said, that's not my job to, sell you. It's, the priest didn't say it, but we used to have a priest say, this isn't, let's make a deal. He had the faith, and he knew what God wanted. It's just he was having fun running the other direction. He said, I see you have the faith, and I see you know what God wants. It's up to you what you want. And there's this thing in the Bible which a lot of atheists absolutely despise, and I will give the atheist bonus points for not going off, of the rich man who was being called to give up everything. Because, here's a guy who's sexually active, had a career in the military. He served his time, I think, got out. Thinking of, he broke up with that girlfriend, but he'd been dating for a while and everything. He had life on a platter. He could keep being secular. Anytime a god calls you, you can say to the god, go bug off, and they will pursue you. They will pursue you pretty damn hard, but, for a lot of people, they go, oh, bug off, and it's not for them. And, many are called, few are chosen, as a priest used to tell us too. And just hearing him talk about that, I realized what Odin wanted, because Odin's like, shh, and listen. So Odin has me in the meditation chair, is like, shh, listen. And Odin's like, what are you afraid of? And I said, well, what I've been saying is, because he was trying to see what could he do to make Jesus not love him, or what could he do to, like, run away from Jesus. I said, I keep saying that I'm afraid you're going to call me to you and abandon me. And I'm like, that's not it at all. You've made it pretty clear during this whole courtship phase. He's calling me to him to serve him. I said, what I'm really afraid of is that Odin is calling me to be a priest. Calm down. And I said, what I'm really afraid is he's calling me to be a priest and have the discipline to walk that road, because that means no more running around looking at daisies, I talk in wolf metaphors a lot with the old man. It makes sense, a lamb of God, for example, a Christian is over by Jesus somewhere in his vicinity if they're doing the right thing. They're not off chomping clovers while the good Lord is trying to tell them something. So too, a good wolf of Odin is over somewhere near the Allfather, wagging their tail very happily, and they're not off sniffing daisies when he wants to teach them something. In other words, it's time. You're mine. Come home to me. I gave you International House of Awesome. I'll let you fool around for a bunch of years. You're gonna be 45. You're coming home, damn it. I'm like, okay. And Loki was both all around me during this and also standing back. And it doesn't mean Loki's going to disappear, but it was like Odin has absolutely laid his claim. And I said, okay. The game I've been playing with Odin is, if you send me that big wild miracle, I'll know you really want me. This isn't some kind of bloop up in my head. And he says, no. He says, that won't do you good. He says, I know you, and I know every Christian book you ever read where, God sends these people signs, or God sends signs in the Bible. What happens? They wear off. It doesn't matter how many damn miracles God did in the Old Testament. After a while, he just did miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. And the people still wouldn't believe. I mean, this was the age of, and this gets back to the Allfather, this was the age of grand, great miracles, if you believe the text. And the people are like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to go do what we want anyhow. God just got pissed off. And, Odin's not angry or anything. One second, guys. These damn allergies. Sorry about that, but he says, I know you. He says, I know you. You have a brilliant mind, and he's not flattering me. Pre-stroke, I would have been very good Jesuit, I think. Gender thing, but, he says, you have a brilliant mind, and no matter what I did for you, you could reason it away. He said, even if I did something for you that was so spectacular, you could still afterwards, because that doesn't keep up. And after the miracle, you've got to go home and bake bread and clean the toilet and everything else. The miracle loses some of its charm. because when we see a miracle from any god, whether it be Odin or Loki or God or Buddha or the tree outside or whatever, it's wonderful in the moment because when you're enraptured in that moment, you feel like it's going to last forever. And then you got to go, pay taxes and walk the dog and hear the kids scream and, balance the house budget. And it goes away. It goes away. It's better to have something that you know is practical and that you know is real and that you can't ignore. And, I kind of passed out my chair. I fell asleep. It wasn't like any god all. It was, oh, finally. And, I got the message and I fell asleep. And I woke up to hear, like, the very end. And, like, I was hearing it while I was, like, partially asleep. And then I, like, went to sleep. And next talker came on. And I woke up, like, instantaneously. Because it was atheist and atheist. I'm like, now it's going to get mean. I'm good. I'm good. I heard 2 of his podcasts. I'm happy. And Odin will lead you through a lot of weird things. Odin will lead you, or Loki will lead you. And I think why I was having so many problems with Loki is one, Loki has a very different teaching style. He does. And 2, Loki wasn't meant to be my ultimate teacher. He wasn't. It's why he could never. I'm getting this enthusiastic nod up. That exactly. Wasn't meant to be the ultimate teacher. Wasn't meant to be the god that was calling me all my life. Last night I was cleaning, as I was cleaning in the reading room we have upstairs. Loki had sacrificed his, remember I told you guys there was a kind of glass crystal ball looking thing on this lamp. It was only held in by 3 tiny screws, and I'm like, that goddamn thing's gonna come off someday, and it's gonna crash down because I've seen videos of them do it, and it's gonna hit this computer, and computer's gonna be history. So I took it off and I gave it to Loki, and Loki's most precious bestest thing. Loki gave it up, and we made the reading room look so fucking cool, guys. I mean, it wouldn't look impressive to you guys, because it's not rich, it's not expensive, but it looks so fucking cool and magical, because it's got this glowing crystal ball that I've always wanted, so achievement unlocked. And I took a lamp from in there, and I put it up there, and we ordered these rugs. And then my dumbass realized there was a reason these rugs were the price they were. They're kind of small, but then it was like couldn't go up to like a bigger size because there'd just be no damn room. But whatever. We're getting a little off track. But as I'm cleaning that room up, and I'm excited because we have ordered our rugs and we've ordered our lamp, and I'll have the rugs like within 2 weeks or something. And we agreed if I really truly fall in love with this rug, and if we really truly get this stimulus check, for one area, for up there, not for down here, but for up there, I can go ahead and splurge and get like the medium-sized rug, which is like 3 feet by 5 feet or something. But just one, not 20 of them, just one. You guys know me, my addictive personality. I'm cleaning out Papa Legba's thing, and Odin had kind of indicated that no matter what I was practicing all my life, it was really him I was serving, and I was like, I don't know about that. But I looked at all of Papa Legba's stuff, and I had been picking out this stuff for Papa Legba, and I remember our conversations. And I said, I don't know why I'm picking out Santa Claus stuff for you because this doesn't fit you, and I don't know why I'm picking out like all this German stuff for you, but it fits you. So this Iron Cross ring, and like the equal arm cross of Odin, and it's like from the Sun World, and it was not a bad thing, and I have the version that's just like the equal arm cross. And I have all this other stuff that I picked out for Legba because, yeah, it could fit Legba, but it was like I was getting ready for Odin to come into my life and to put his claim on me. And I think he just led me the hard way around because he knew that, I respect the Jesuits, and it was a thing of, we're not going into Jesuit land, but I respect discipline. Respect discipline backwards, forward, and sideways, because I grew up Roman Catholic. And you might hate stuff in the Roman Catholic Church, but they have had councils on this shit, and they have learned men with educations. It's not just like in heathenry, a bunch of people whining at each other. Maybe this one went off and got a degree, and that one went off and got a degree. But they don't have no damn centralized leadership or anything, which is just as well, more than likely, because the way they're headed, we don't want them to have a central leadership. Not the way they're headed. They're heading down, the wrong way. Instead of opening up and taking a look at 2,000 years of what the church did wrong, they're going down the same exact path of the early church, and Catholics looking at it like, no. And, he knew that I would respect an argument from someone that has an education, who went and got that education and applied the education and applied the reasoning, and who wasn't afraid to talk to an atheist, and they're actually friends. He knew I wasn't going to listen to these people that claim they have 3 or 4 degrees in heathenry, and yet the only kind of discourse they understand is screaming and saying, "You're wrong, I'm right." I never get that learned, educated vibe off of any heathen, no matter how many degrees they have. It's like, I've never heard that, and I miss that so much. And it was a thing of like kind of coming home, not like go out now and get the Catholic things, but part of our courtship was years ago, and I thought it was odd that God wanted me to read the Bible and study the Bible backwards and forwards, and then do these meditation things where we ride horses in the desert and race horses. But I was like, God's just unusual. Yeah, God's unusual, right? Wink. So, it's always been Odin, and Odin told me very freely. He said, a lot of the gods you've known recently. So it was him. It was him. And I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at him. A teacher's job is to teach you. It doesn't, it's kind of like I look at that as your teacher in grade school or even your teacher in high school coming in a cool outfit. And maybe they dress up as a pirate to teach you pirate stuff. And maybe they dress up as a peasant to teach you about medieval Europe. And it's still them. It's still them, but they can pretend and get into character. And for a day, it's like, you're so cool. I just didn't know it was Odin dressing up and getting into character. And apparently he enjoys playing Dionysus, and apparently he enjoys playing, various roles. I was like, this explains why Asmodeus looked pretty damn Caucasian, and why he actually had that kind of vibe. And wasn't Morris had run into either. It's just the old man is astoundingly complex, and we don't give him credit for it. So it was a good thing, and I wanted to record this before I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get a bath and I'm gonna make myself look nice, and I'm like, no, no, I just got up for meditation, so I'm a mess. But I'm like, if I do that and I worry about the lighting and everything, I'm gonna lose it. But I just wanted to do this for you guys. And he says, well, no, are you a heathen? And I looked at him and go, yeah. And I said, well, what does this entail? And we'd already made our agreement about 20 times. He says, you're with me. He says, do you think any other gods are going to go bother him? Try to retake him or something. Like, how often does Thor walk into a church and grab a Jesuit priest? Probably not all that often. I'm sure it's happened, but probably not all that often. I said, no. And I said, even if they tried, he's pretty dedicated. He's going to take his vows. He's the same thing, with us. He said, when we see you're serious, when we see you're committed, they will respect each other. He said, but if you're not committed, and we know you're fair game, you're fair game. He says, if you're not committed and you haven't committed to the one you're supposed to be with, it doesn't mean we're all supposed to become monotheistic, but you definitely get one God that you're supposed to be the closest with. Um, you're fair game. That was the explanation I got through the filter of my life experience. You might get something different, but I got, until I was ready to commit, I was fair game. I was fair game. So he said, now that you've committed, you're going to notice this is all going to stop. And he says, this walking away from these friends, he said, this was necessary. He said, this was necessary. He said, you can't be trying to go live in happy Christian land that through education doesn't exist, because you have learned too much and you can't unlearn these things. And he says you could try, but you'd fragment your personality if you managed to do that. You can't go from, childlike faith to learning and being an adult and studying text and then throw it all out the window and then go and try to be a child again. It's useless. Something's going to break somewhere, because at that point it's not childlike faith, it's pretending. And it'll catch up with you sooner or later. And he says, now you have your things. And once you get with your God, they don't, as far as I'm concerned, they don't care about your dogma. They really don't. They don't care if you believe in this role or that role or anything any human made up. They care that you listen and you learn the lessons they want you to. So, I figured I would share that with you. So I'm feeling this gentle wolfish push of heathen tags, dear, heathen tags, but it won't be that kind of heathen channel. We're not going to discuss word or law, because I don't believe in either one, and I don't think you have to. I think the biggest threat to heathenry are heathens themselves. I think they're so dogmatic already. And they're so, little yappy lap dogs on a chain trying to be a big, strong wolf, that they drive away plenty of people that would have made good heathens, because they're like, well, if you don't believe in word, and you don't believe in Orlog, and you don't believe literally in the royal tree, and you don't believe, like, or they invent something. They say they believe that stuff, but then they invent something else. Like, there are people that are, here's my reason why God X, Y, or Z was really the one true God. And I'm like, these people didn't have one true God. Pantheons come very later. Study a book once in a while. Our pantheon for the Norse gods came later. It did. It did. No group of people. Cliff Notes human history. All people everywhere hated each other. People lived in little tiny families, then they lived in little tiny tribes, and they all hated each other. Then they had little tiny city states, and they all hated each other, and they all had their own gods, and their gods didn't always get along. And sometimes a god's people would be stronger than other god's people, so they would wipe them out, and that god would just hoover up everything they liked about that god. Odin came into the Norse pantheon, which wasn't a Norse pantheon yet, because you still had people over here worshiping Thor, and you had people over here worshiping the old man. You had people over here maybe in a Freyr cult or something. They weren't all, worried about the Norse pantheon that didn't exist yet. And he just started hoovering stuff up like crazy, because the area and the time was just prime for him. And I see a lot, they are not the same deity, but I see a lot of connections between him and the Old Testament God of just hoovering up stuff left and right, and all the stuff we have about him is like actually torn up bits of nonsense that people are trying to paste together and go, see, it makes sense now. It's like, no, it doesn't, because that fragment is from 400 years before that fragment, and that fragment over there is from another country, and that fragment over there wasn't written in the same language. It's not all the same text. So, those scholars. Anyhow, we really enjoyed it, and I just told him there's a lot I didn't like about heathenry. He said, great, don't do it, don't believe it, don't become it. I'm not under any obligation to go out and get 4 more degrees. I have a degree and a minor. Fat lot of good they do me. And I don't have obligation to go out and study Icelandic studies or perfect Old Norse or anything else. Just have to do what I have to do. The funny thing is, I'll finish this up with a story for you guys. I was feeling really lost this 1 second, guys, these allergies. Sorry about that. I was feeling really lost. So Cliff Notes version, I got out, we had gotten candles out when I was cleaning out Labo's little kind of hope chest. I got a candle, a red candle, and inscribed it to Loki. And I ascribed help me in the runes, and ascribed a couple other things on it, and I burnt it, so it's once and done. And that's when the call from the friend came in, and that's when I realized I couldn't just keep letting these people in my life, because I had a very clear insight to the type of people they were, and they're never going to change. They're never going to become the kind of Christians I think they should be as Christians, because that's not the kind of people they are. And, it was always going to hold me back. It was always going to hold me back from pursuing Nordic studies or pursuing any other kind of studies. And if you are destined to meet a god, this is something very important I want you guys to hear, because this is something Loki's like, don't meet that god through bad people, or you're going to have years of struggle to overcome that bad teaching. I had to overcome, coming towards Odin through the worst possible sources. Took years to overcome that. You might be going through something right now with years of listening to the wrong people about Loki, please stop. Stop. It won't be fun. I'm not saying it's going to be fun when you have to go through realizing that's not so, and it's going to feel like you're losing your mind for a while. But you will eventually gain clarity. Anyone that's making your god sound like a boogeyman, I'm not saying they can't be frightening and impressive, but anyone that's saying that your god's a boogeyman or some kind of monster or something, 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 stop listening to that person. Stop listening to that person. If that's meant to be the god for you, if that's meant to be where you're meant to be, it's going to work out. But it is normal, by the way, for the process to take a couple years. Very rarely, if ever, do people who just have one dramatic experience stay with something. They don't. They say they do, but how many times have you had a dramatic experience, heard me talk about it, and it just doesn't go anywhere because it was like once and done. And then, like I said, you go on to clean the toilet or go to bed or eat your lunch or whatever, and the awe goes away. And if there's no follow through, then, it usually doesn't go anywhere. It's a process of years, sometimes decades, of a god calling you and you running towards them and then running away, and then a god calling you and you running towards them and running away. I didn't miss the fact that this Jesuit was pretty much probably around my age because he, growing up, did his military service, was dating all these other things, and now he's still going in for training. This didn't, maybe he's a few years younger, but it did not miss my attention. So, if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. And don't worry about us changing the tags to, adding Keith into the tags. I swear, we're not going to talk about the 9 noble virtues because that's very white power. That's very Nazistic. That's very, kind of bigoted leanings. So you don't have to worry about those. We're not going to talk about Word and Orlog. We're not going to sit here, puff ourselves up, and say how we're better heathens because we believe this obscure, Icelandic text. We're not going to talk about working with land lights if you've never worked with them, or, because really, I've been in and out of heathenry for years. I know what works, what doesn't. And we're certainly not going to talk about honoring ancestors that, you'd have to be stupid. If you wouldn't let them in your home in life, don't let them in your home in death. There you go. So, so I go, yeah, Loki will still be here. We'll still have Loki around. It's just a matter of principle. It's why the house has felt so settled, and I've been kind of freaked out because the energy feels very calm now because this is Odin's energy. It's very calm. It's very orderly. It's very rational. He can be ecstatic, but he's also a strategist. He's also a scholar, and they tend to like neat and orderly and quiet. So, if you guys like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.